Hey everybody, how's it going? Walker here. Today I'm going to show you how to do Inkscape to RE3. Let's get started. First, let's get rid of all this. Let's get rid of this guy. RE3. Engrave, Inkscape. Now we have a clean palette. Inkscape's always going to start you off with this size palette, and that is a default page size. Just keep that in mind when we talk about this later. First, we're going to get our design. We're going to want to do a Cinderella design. We're going to look it up on Google. We're going to go to Images. We're going to go to Tools, Color, Black and White, and sort of pick an image that is a good one. We're going to go look for large because we want high detail images. I think the second one that popped up is pretty good. Well, I like to double check in this area, make sure there are similar ones. Let's just save that image as, and I'll save it to the desktop. I usually show it in the folder and drag and drop it into Inkscape. Now we got Cinderella. We're going to just get her ready. We don't want this little icon in the corner, so we're going to Path, Trace Bitmap, and do a brightness cutoff, and it defaults to 0.45. That's typically pretty good, and we'll just hit OK. You'll see now we have the original and the auto traced file. We're going to go ahead and delete the original, and you'll see all this goopity gook over here. We're going to just do our sub select tool, which is right above under the arrow tool, and select those guys and delete them. We don't want that there. We have a giant Cinderella ready for the ball dancing around. We're going to scale her down. You have your dimensions over here. They're in millimeters. We're going to lock it so everything scales uniformly. We don't want it to scale and make her all skinny or long or short or tall. So now we select inches and scale her uniformly, and now she's about 5.5 wide with a height of 6.5. Now we have the details for engraving. What am I saying here? But now we have the details for engraving, but let's say we wanted to cut out just around her shape. What I'm going to do is copy and paste that same file. I usually put it to the side and I do Path Break Apart. Now I'm going to delete all the little pieces on the inside, or move them. And you'll see those are all the little pieces that we don't need, so we'll go ahead and delete those. Now we have an outside vector that we can use to cut around Cinderella. We give it a red vector. When we zoom in, you can see those vector lines in there. Bring it up a bit, bring it to 0.1. I like to bring it up to 1 point. No matter what, it's just easy to see. Make sure it's red, give it a fill of nothing. And then we'll drag it over and you'll watch it snap in place around Cinderella. Let's zoom in and watch that happen. Click, boom. Should snap in place. If not, change your snaps in the settings, the way things snap together. Now I don't want to cut directly around the edge, so I'm going to do an outset. With that vector selected, I'm going to do Path Outset, and you'll see that it brings it right off the edge of Cinderella, just giving it a nice little border. I'm going to zoom in. I don't want this little guy, so I'm going to sub-select again and delete it. Now we have our outline with Cinderella. Remember that we're going to cut the red and engrave the black. So now we have two files technically. Make sure your opacity is 100. A lot of people mess up if their opacity is less than 100. Nothing's going to show up in RE3. So just always double check your opacity is set to 100. File, document properties. In document properties, you're going to resize page to content, resize page to drawing. And now our work area is just of Cinderella, nothing else, no blank space. We're going to save it as Cinderella. Yeah. I will save it as a PDF. This is our preferred format because PDFs hold scale really well. And I will just save it to the desktop and OK. Now Cinderella lives on my desktop. We're going to go to RE3. We're punching the IP address. This is the IP address of the Pro 48 in the warehouse. And we are going to connect to it. Go to my workspace with our project, my project in the workspaces rather, and then drag and drop it. Well, we'll minimize the window and find our Cinderella file right here. Drag her in. We want vector and raster data, so we're going to hit OK. After we select both, we're going to zoom into her. In the layers and objects, click Cinderella and have a drop down. We'll have our engraving layer and our vector layer. So what I like to do is sort of check everything out on this side of things. We're going to lower our threshold just to pick up less of the engraving, and you'll notice it picks up less of the red, but I'm going to visually turn off the vectors so I can make sure it's not picking up this red edge. So I can lower this until it's not picked up at all, and you'll see that the red edge is not being detected, but I'm not super confident that those lips and the details that are finer are going to be picked up the way I want them to. So we're going to just do a slight redesign. Now this would work, it just the details are very small on her face. So I am going to just go to the drawing board and delete everything. Go back to Inkscape the way it was and select that vector. Go to path. Our fill and stroke has gone, so we're going to open that up. And we're going to change that to a white. Let me zoom in here. Mess something up. We don't want a white. Vector that. I'm going to select just the outline, not her. There we go. Red vector, and I'm going to change it to white vector. This is a great option for if you don't want to pick up that line at all. So we'll save it as Cinderella, make sure it's a PDF again, go to desktop and save. Okay, replace, sure, why not? And we're going to minimize, drag Cinderella back in, bring raster and vector, yes. Now you'll notice that the vector line is a light blue. Even though we set it to white, in RE3 it's represented as a light blue. And that's fine, that's okay. It can't represent all the colors. So now we have our engraving. We're going to lower the threshold. None of that outside vector is being picked up. We're going to turn off our vectors visually, and you'll see that the details are just a lot more predominant in this file because we didn't have to do the threshold as much to get rid of that detail. We'll just select our power settings. Resolution on DPI, we'll keep it at 250. It's a cartoon. Typical fill, like black and white images, I leave at 250. Speed at 100 most of the time. we're going to set our power settings for our vectors. Remember to turn a vector black off. This is designed as a vector, and the image that's being engraved has vector data, so we'll just turn black off. And then keep the white or the light blue on because we're going to cut it around the outside. Now we're going to run our perimeter and hit play. And there you have it. A wood Cinderella that's not only engraved but also cut out. I hope this video helped you guys out. If you haven't seen our other videos, please check them out on our channel. Subscribe, comment if you have any questions, and until next time, keep making.